If you conduct the cell line development already in perfusion, you get different results than if you do it in batch. And so the same is true for perfusion media development and optimization. Because of the high throughput requirement, if you want to do a lot of experiments in parallel to fine-tune specific nutrient concentrations, many of the, I would say, traditional cell culture media were developed using batch-based technologies. And so we are now getting to the point where we cannot optimize much further using this kind of disconnect between a batch-based optimization strategy for a continuous process.
Hey, smart biotech scientists, welcome back. We are in the middle of a conversation with Jochen Sieck, who is the Director of Cell Culture Media and Process Development at Merck Life Science. And we are talking about perfusion and sustainability, which is a complex equation. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, please go back and first listen to part 1. And in part 2, we're continuing our journey and we're diving into strategies to reduce the media consumption in perfusion processes. Stay tuned for an exciting conversation. Are you juggling the complexities of CMC development while trying to enjoy the beauty of biotech? Have you ever wondered if there's a way to simplify bioprocessing? Welcome to the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast, where we're diving headfirst into the very challenges you face. We're breaking it down, demystifying the jargon, and giving you the keys to unlock your full potential. I'm your host, David Brohlman, and I get it. With 15 plus years in the biotech industry, I face the same challenges you do. There's a way to simplify and streamline so you can remove complexity, you can skip trials and errors, deliver without delay your groundbreaking therapy to clinics and market, and still enjoy every single step. Do you want to learn how industry experts and I did it? Grab a cup of coffee and your favorite notebook and pen. Now is the time to take your bioprocessing game to the next level. Let's smarten up biotech. How do we manage these huge quantities? Because there is also an operational side of the thing. We have to produce all that media and to store it somehow. Are there any smart strategies out there?
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the major headaches. And if you look at facility designs, so you can tell from, if you've compared some plants in the past, you can tell if a facility from a top-down point of view is based on fat batch or based on perfusion, because you need a huge tank farm if you want to support a perfusion bioreactor. So there are a couple of things that also we are working on. So we have a couple of years ago introduced the first successful automated perfusion media prep in the lab scale. So that was in a collaboration with a university. We wanted to show that you can actually, even for a more difficult to hydrate cell culture medium, you can automate the whole process and still get the same medium performance. That was an open question for a long time. Again, the biopharma industry is comparably conservative about some things. But if you look at how cell culture media preparation is done, it is really not so complex. You are having a sequence of addition steps and then maybe pH and homes. So there's no reason not to automate this. But it was an open question for a long time. And so we provided an example in 5-liter scale that the whole process can be automated easily, shown this on conferences, etc. So currently, we're envisioning to scale this up to 500-liter scale. So no small game here. A 500-liter tank that could probably push out something like 2,000 liters of medium a day. So what is a typical consumption rate of a single-use perfusion bioreactor? But yeah, so that's probably just one way to do this.
And if we look now into the future, not going back to the future, but going
we get back to the
future. Where do you see perfusion as a process and also the media development for perfusion going, let's say in 5 to 10 years from now?
I think one maybe of the technical novelties that have been enabled in the last couple of years is that cell culture media for perfusion can now be developed in a different way than before. There are some examples out there that also, if you look at your manufacturing cell lines, so if you conduct the cell line development already in perfusion, you get different results than if you do it in batch. And so the same is true for perfusion media development and optimization. Because of the high throughput requirement, if you want to do a lot of experiments in parallel to fine-tune specific nutrient concentrations, many of the, I would say, traditional cell culture media were developed using batch-based technologies. And so we are now getting to the point where we cannot optimize much further using this kind of disconnect between a batch-based optimization strategy for a continuous process. And so this is maybe one thing that I'm very passionate about, that now the new tools that are becoming available for small-scale perfusion operation, semi-continuous or fully continuous, are getting us much closer to the real process. And so that we can screen media in a much more predictive way than before. So I think this is opening the door for the next iteration of cell culture media for perfusion that are really from the cradle to the grave are optimized for the whole perfusion process. So that's, I think, one of those major transitions that we're going through for the continuous process.
Wow, the future looks definitely exciting, Jochen. And now let's roll up our sleeves and get to work. Can you give our listeners a few simple and very practical steps to develop a robust and cost-efficient and sustainable perfusion process?
My team and I are working on some publications for this as well, because what we hear is that for many of our customers, those are really some of the ongoing challenges. The whole industry has been working very much with batch and fed batch based processes, and most of the experience in the field is also on those processes. So that's a key hurdle. I would probably suggest, if you are a researcher in this area, a process developer that is going into perfusion maybe for the first time, there's a couple of very good papers and publications that you can look. So a common friend of us, David, Jean-Marc Bielzer, has, together with Morbidelli, published a whole book on continuous bioprocessing. So I think which also cites a few very good papers, like from Moritz Wolf, that take you through a process development really to get started with semi-continuous perfusion using spin tubes, for example, then go into small-scale bioreactors, how you can operate these. I think this is a very good starting point. Then today, as in contrast to when I was doing this as a postdoc, there's also, of course, commercially available perfusion media platforms and perfusion-able cell lines that you can use as a starting point to then go into your own optimization. I think that's how I would approach it.
So, smart biotech scientists, there are lots of good resources out there. I will put the link of the book in the show notes so you can go and find it. And also, there are platforms out there already. So you can start with something that already works and then you can tweak it. That's the idea behind that, Jochen. We have covered a lot of ground today, Jochen, and I want to circle back to the beginning of our conversation when you mentioned that you were fortunate to be surrounded by wonderful mentors. And I'm a big believer of mentorship myself, because surrounding yourself with brilliant minds is key in biotech. And you have recently become the active chairman. So please tell us what you do and how you drive networking to bring cell technology experts together.
Very happily. So maybe for your listeners' benefit, Active Animal Cell Technology Industrial Platform is a European consortium of biopharma companies, mostly, that is representing this animal cell technology industry. So it was recently rebranded to Advanced Cell Technology Industrial Platform. And so what we are since 1990, where the European Commission asked to be founded as an industry counterpart to ESACT, the European Society for Advanced Cell Technology, is networking, providing a network for the European cell culture industry. And a big thing is also we support the career development of young scientists by bringing them into the ACTIB consortium. That's also how I got involved with ACTIB in the first place. 2012, I was invited to one of the ACTIB meetings in Windsor. It was a absolutely great experience to present on my PhD work. And I got a lot of very, very good feedback, which was super encouraging back then, as I said. So I had nearly dropped out of PhD at some point. And then at the very end of my work, I received very valuable feedback from industry experts. And so this is really something that's a fantastic experience. And so I'm super happy and honored that I could stay in touch with ACTIB for a long time. So I became the delegate representative of Novartis first, and then when I moved into Merck Life Science, I was also becoming the backup representative for Merck Life Science. And then after a career change, I became the representative for Life Science, became part of the steering committee in 2019. So worked with the rest of the steering committee to steer ACTIB through the COVID pandemic, which was an exercise in itself. And it was really calling for collaboration and just bringing the member companies closer together, seeking possibilities to collaborate and learn from each other. And then late last year, I was elected chairman of the steering committee. So maybe if I can brutally use this opportunity to make a bit of an advertisement to your listeners, especially you guys out there, if you're a young career scientist in biotechnology, focusing on advanced or animal cell technology, please check our website for the ACTIB Fellowship Award. The current call is out right now for the next iteration. And I would encourage you to do what I did, apply for the Fellowship Award, join us in one of the meetings, present your work, get industry expert feedback, and make some valuable connections that can take you through the whole of your career. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for driving this. It's always great to have this place where scientists can connect, get ideas, get feedback. It's a wonderful initiative. So now, as I mentioned, we have covered a lot of ground. So I'd be curious now, Jochen, what is the most important takeaway from our conversation today?
You asked me a lot of questions, and I totally appreciate that because it's easier to reply to questions than to come up with a coherent story yourself. But I'm afraid that's the limitation that we've been discussing. So there's a lot of questions, and the answers are not always, for all practitioners, presented in a coherent story. So I think one of the last questions that you asked was, if you're starting in bioprocess development in perfusion sleeves up, what would be your first steps? I think this is really something where there is a lot of material out there in the academic area, in the minds of experts in the biopharma industry. And there's also decades of experience available with perfusion, but it's not broadly available. So maybe that is a takeaway that I will have to discuss with my team. So is there a gap that we should be addressing?
Wonderful. We will definitely be looking out for any material coming out because it's always great to have a summary or step-by-step process or some tools. And in the meantime, Jochen, where can people connect with you?
Well, all your listeners, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm relatively regularly having a look what's going there, or send me an email. I'm sure David can provide you with a link. And maybe there's also an opportunity for the Europeans among the crowd to attend ESACT. So ACTIB is also participating in ESACT as a group. We are having a workshop on, I guess, the Sunday before the main conference. So you will also be able to find me there. We are going to focus on PAT technologies in bioprocess development. Maybe I'll see you there in person.
Yeah, smart biotech scientists, please do take advantage of this offer and please do connect with Jochen. If you have any questions about perfusion or you need any resources, I will leave all the contact information down in the show notes. And thank you so much, Jochen, for sharing about perfusion. It was a pleasure having you on the show today.
Pleasure and honor is on my side. Thanks, David. All the best for the future of the podcast.
All right, smart scientists. That's all for today on the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on your journey to bioprocess mastery. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. By doing so, we can empower more scientists like you. For additional bioprocessing tips, visit us at smartbiotechscientist.com. Stay tuned for more inspiring biotech insights in our next episode. Until then, let's continue to smarten up biotech.